Hey, everybody. I hope you are doing well. This is DAC Talk. And before we get started, I wanted to tell you what DAC Talk actually stands for. DAC Talk came out of this idea of people being able to become a fly on the wall in the lives, in the rooms, in the businesses of other entrepreneurs, because sometimes it just gets really, really lonely as far as it goes in being, hey, like I work from home, I don't see anybody all day. So DAC Talk is Dave and Community Talk, and it's just where I get together with my entrepreneurial buddies and we just talk about our businesses. And today I'm really, really excited for the next conversation with my friend Ahna Hendricks. Ahna, how are you?
I'm awesome, Dave. Thanks for having me. This is going to be great.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's fantastic. Now, Ahna and I go way back. I mean, in terms of like digital years, I think we've been following one another on Twitter for like the past, I don't know, 2 years, something like that. And last year, what's that?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, time has flown like mad crazy. But last year, you actually appeared on my church marketing podcast, and we talked about, taking care, like self-care and maintaining healthy boundaries, because that's something that, pretty much affects anyone and everyone. We talk specifically to people who are in churches and, they experience burnout. But today we're talking about the thing that you've got to remember when it comes to your clients, when it comes to your customers, the people who you do business with and who do business with you. And when you and I were talking ahead of time, Ahna, I said, what is it that you really, really would love to talk about that you believe entrepreneurs need to know, need to have in their brain, need to be aware of? And it was just this idea of the human element. So first, would you just share just a little bit about who you are and then go straight into talking about what you mean by the human element and why we need to be thinking about that as far as it relates to our customers and our clients?
Sure. So my name is Ahna Hendricks. I'm the CEO of Arch Digital Agency, and we specialize in social media services. I have been in business for myself since June 2012 and launched my full agency last year and have a fantastic team of guys who've been around the block for a long time, and we just crush it together for clients. In terms of this human element, I think that, when you ask me what I'm most passionate about, it's kind of been currently at the forefront of my mind lately. I was asked to speak at the Social Media Strategy Summit in New York City in June, and ended up reworking my topic kind of last minute to really focus on emotions and how huge they are to storytelling specifically. But, it just really got me thinking a lot about this human element that is kind of disappearing in social media lately, because we're becoming so focused on the data and on, that conversion and making those sales. And I mean, that's the bottom line, right? We all have to make money and we all have to pay the bills. But as social media continues to mature and marketers and business folks continue to jump into the scene, it's becoming less about the people on the other side and more about the numbers. And that's a dangerous place for us to go to, because I'm already seeing in my agency how much harder we're having to work these days to actually reach people and to establish trust and credibility, because they've got so much noise coming at them. And it's just, I think it's really vitally important that when we're having conversations online, when we're interacting with people, when people are asking questions, that we are really keenly aware of the fact that these are real people. They're like our friends, they're like our family, they're like the people that we love the most in this world. And we need to treasure that, and we need to honor that and respect it. So, yeah, no, it's a topic I could talk about for a long time.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I know for me, what's going on with there it goes. I know for me, for the longest time, I would be driving in my car, and I'll tie it in real quick. Yeah. I would be driving in my car down the freeway, and I would see all the people around me. You'd be looking to the left, to the right. And I don't know what it is about when you're driving and somebody just pulls up next to you. There's just this thing, you just want to look over at them like, who is this driving next to me?
Or maybe you don't.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, but I would go through these like out of body experiences, not like weird or anything, but just like all of a sudden I'm thinking like I'm just a dude on the road, and they're looking at me the exact same way I'm looking at them. Like, I don't know you. I'm never going to see you again. You probably have a wife or a husband and kids and parents and all these different relationships in your life. But right now you're just some dude driving alongside me on the road. And it was just a really, like, those thoughts that I could never really reconcile what they actually meant. But I was keenly aware that this is a real person. Even though I don't know their story, I don't know where they're coming from, I don't know where they've been, I don't know what their struggles are, their successes are, things like that. It's still a very real person. And it's kind of a, I don't know, not a daunting thought, but it's kind of a little bit of an intimidating thought, what you don't know about someone. And so when you start thinking about what you're talking about here, like, it's a real person on the other end of this digital camera that's watching, or the other end of these digital earbuds that are listening. I mean, I don't know. Do you ever feel like the weight of that? Does that ever ring true with you?
I don't think it's like an intimidating thing for me. I feel like I've always been really old school in social media. You know, and sometimes to my detriment, I think, because I am really focused on that one person and developing that one relationship.
Yeah.
You know, like, thinking about the masses it takes a different mindset, you know, and to step into that mindset takes effort by me. I grew up in small businesses, you know, so I'm used to that. My parents had a restaurant, and I started selling cookies in that restaurant when I was like 8.
What kind of
and
cookies?
It was like chocolate chip cookies.
Nice.
They were so good. My mom, like, could not for the life of her. She tried so hard using the same recipe and everything to make them like I did. Totally couldn't. They were just incredible. But, you know, like, from a young age, it was like that one connection. And how can we start building one relationship and then let that multiply, you know? But you know, I used to, when I pull up next to people at the red light,
Yeah.
I only look at them if I'm not singing, first of all. But I think what goes through my mind is kind of like, what is that person's life like? You know, what are their struggles? What are they dealing with? What's it like to be them? You know, to step inside their body, to be in their world. And I think that that's something as marketers that we must do, or entrepreneurs, or even business owners. You know, when we don't approach business from the side of the other person and try and come at it from their aspect, we miss out on being able to connect with them in a real and genuine way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because we're thinking business, we're thinking money, and we've got light bills to pay, and, you know, all that other stuff.
Yeah. Well, what you're talking about is stepping back from thinking about all our quote unquote other stuff and thinking a little bit more about their other stuff, right? Like, putting yourself in their shoes and realizing, I mean, let's just keep it in the world of social, or keep it in the world of online marketing, but realizing that when they get your email, pardon me, it's going to be in between a very important family message and a bank statement, you know, notification. Like, there's other things going on in their lives. And so what I hear you saying, and I'm just 100% on board with, is just this idea of a continual recognition that it's a real person. And, you know, Brian Fanzo always says, think like a fan. And he's thinking in terms of, you know, us as online entrepreneurs, or as Twitter users or Periscope users or whatnot, that do for other people what you would want them to do for you in terms of engagement and growing your network and things like that. But I think it really, you know, weighs in there. Like, think about other people in terms of what you know you have going on in your life. Think about that with other people. And that really gives you a new perspective on how to communicate with them and how to interact with them, because they're not thinking about you and me, you know, day in and day out, like we're thinking about ourselves. They're thinking about all the stuff that they have going on. So how do we step alongside them and respect them as humans and respect them as people and help them in this one area that maybe we can provide some value? I mean, is that kind of what you're shooting at there?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. I just
Awesome.
think, you know, it's like, When you approach, and I've written about this a couple of times, and like you just said, when you approach whatever it is that you have to offer this world with, and that you're selling, because we're all selling something.
Yeah.
When you approach other people with the mindset that this is what you have to sell instead of what it can provide, what kind of a solution it can provide for them, what kind of, like, just coming at it from a different angle, stepping into their shoes first, it does open up those lines of communication in a completely different way. And it really allows you to kind of stay focused on the fact that they are a human and, you know, that they're a real person too. And they don't want to be inundated with my freaking emails, or they don't want to have me sending out automatic DMs, or they don't, you know what I mean, all those things that drive
all those yucky things.
Oh, yeah.
Well, okay, so let's take this into a little bit more, not tactile, but a little bit more, you know, we were kind of talking about it in a 30,000-foot view. Let's get more like boots on the ground, and I'm curious, where do you think we go wrong in the first place, or what we need to think about at the very beginning of starting whatever it is we're doing online? Because there's plenty of people who are going to be listening to this, watching this, who are in the genesis of their social business, of their online business, of their entrepreneurial dream. They're just at the very beginning. What are some of the ways that you've seen people go wrong, or some of the things that you think people don't think about that they need to be thinking about in order to kind of set them on a good trajectory for this, what they need to know about their customer's topic?
Well, I think first and foremost, they need to know who they are very, very well. You know, the Periscope that I did the other day that you jumped on and shared so much wisdom about, you know, in terms of branding, I think you, a new business owner or someone that's really jumping into the game, first of all, needs to know exactly who they are, what their brand stands for, what their values are, you know, what kind of personality they're going to embody. Because if you don't know who you are, you're never going to really be able to authentically interact with people and engage with them. You know, and I think the next step from there is actually figuring out, you know, where it is you best belong. Social media is intense, and if I was just jumping into the game right now as a business owner, I would be really overwhelmed. Seriously, I'd be really overwhelmed.
Yeah.
There's so many different social networks.
That's
well,
what
and rightly so.
Like, where am I supposed to start? There's so many different options. I don't even know what to do. And the right question is, where do I start? The wrong question is, how fast can I get on all these networks? You know what I mean?
Yes. No, exactly. Trying to be everywhere is the sure way to fail. I mean, at any point in time, especially with social media, because, like, you know, people come to me and they're like, you know, we want you to manage our social networks. And they're a small business and they've got like 6, 7 social networks started. And I'm like, you, unless you want to pay me a lot of money.
Yeah, seriously.
You know, because it's going to take a ton of time and resources to do this correctly. Like, it's just not smart. You can't do it. You've got to start out very small. And I think that starting out small is really doing your research on who it is that you're wanting to talk to, finding out where they really are, finding out, in addition, taking into account if maybe you do have a social network already that's doing really well. You know, people think that, like, I mean, Twitter is kind of more B2B in terms of sales. It's also fantastic for customer service, so B2C. But the bottom line is, and I tell people, any network that you're on that you spend the most amount of time on is where you're going to be successful, because you're going to be most comfortable there. You're going to be yourself there. And that's where you put in the most time and energy. You know, there's no reason to get like all caught up in exactly where you need to be. But I really think it's crucial for folks who are stepping into, maybe, you know, a lot of social professionals now are offering consulting, and pay the consulting fee. You know, find someone that you really like and really resonate with, and call them up, make an appointment and say, hey, help me just figure out how to get started, you know. Because fortunately I had, you know, I got in the game back before I had to make all those crazy decisions. But that's
Yeah.
absolutely what I would do now. I wouldn't even want to waste my time, you know?
One of the things that you mentioned, and I really want to key in on because I think it was a really, really astute instruction is where you will be most comfortable. You will be most of yourself, and that those weren't your exact words, but you were saying, whatever social network you spend the most time on, you're eventually going to wind up coming out mostly who you are, right? Like it's going to be your personality. It's going to be your trait. And I think that's really important to recognize because in this, idea of making sure our customers realize that we're a real person, we're authentic, you need more of who you are to come out. And I know a lot of people like to draw lines in the sand, like really fine lines in the sand of this is my business and this is my personal. And I think some lines are really, really healthy to have. But people do business with people. People rarely ever do business with a company. And you may love the company. Like I do love Apple. I mean, I got my Apple Watch here, right? I do love
I knew you were going to say Apple.
I knew I was going to say it because you know enough of my personality after us interacting over the course of time over Twitter. But I love Apple. If I have a bad interaction at a particular store, now I'm still going to buy Apple for many reasons, but I may not really go to that store as much as I choose to go to a different one because I got a bad vibe there, right? People do business with people. And so as we kind of select where we want to appear online and where we want to, interact with others, I think it's absolutely vital that we realize that where we spend most of our time, our personality will eventually come out. And remember that there's got to be some wiggle room there on the business and the personal side, right? So actually, I want to ask you that. How do you manage that business and personal side? I know my friend Carissa, who's been on a bunch of DAC talks, she's always said there's certain things that she just doesn't talk about publicly. And that one of them is like her relationships. That's just something she's like, you can know about what I like to drink. You can know what I like to eat. You can know where I enjoy spending vacation time. You don't get to know what's going on in my relational life. That's something she's always said. So how do you kind of define that line? Because in this idea of, hey, there are people on the other end too, it goes both ways. You got to kind of protect yourself, but you also need to put yourself out there. How do you balance that?
I think it's a daily process. I think it's a daily effort. I don't think that you can draw lines in the sand. I mean, I made a pact with myself that I don't want to get negative or passive aggressive online. It's something I really try to just completely stay away from. And another thing is politics. I just
you and me both.
I love talking about politics. I'm all about it, but let's talk about it face to face. That way we can actually have a conversation instead of it being this back and forth and like trying to pick up maybe what they're really trying to say, or it's. I think politics is scary. I also think religion is a very something that I'm cautious about. I like, occasionally I will talk about my personal views, but I don't do it in a way that's really inviting anyone else to get involved.
Yeah.
Or in a very kind of open way, I'm very careful about I don't talk about my romantic life very easily, might share a photo or something that's a teaser, but that's about it,
A teaser. I like that. So next time I see your Twitter feed, I'll be like, oh, that's a teaser photo right there. No, you talk about religion and politics. So one of the most popular posts that I've had on my blog is one that says why I don't talk about politics. And I always start posting it every other year, essentially, when we get into a political season, because I want people to understand. I want people to know I have a huge interest in politics, not as much as I once did, just because of all the reasons why people get tired of politics, but I have a huge interest in it. But at the same time, I realize, just statistically speaking, looking at the way the votes have gone the last 10 years, if I start talking about my views and opinions, immediately I'm going to turn off 50% of the people on something that has nothing to do with who I am as a person in terms of my business, what I can offer them, things like that. I'm fine turning them off if people are like, I don't like the way he talks, or I don't like the way he does his hair, or I don't like the way he runs his business. Fine. Like, I'm fine if you get turned off by that, but I don't want you to be turned off because of a view that I have that is something that I've thought a lot about and has no bearing on, the worth that I bring as a human being. So I just don't talk about it. I say, I don't want to destroy my influence. That's the reason why I don't talk about it. And then religion, this is kind of interesting. So I do lots of affiliate sales, Ahna. I have lots of different programs that I love, services that I adore, and I do affiliates for them because that's one way entrepreneurs can make some money, is capitalizing on their wisdom and knowledge on using different programs. Well, one of the programs that I use, and I won't say which one it is, but I submitted my application and they came back and they said, your application was denied because of one of these reasons. And I went through and there was like criminal, because it promotes criminal activity, or it has to do with the porn industry, or it promotes a particular religion, or there were like 2 other things. And I looked at it, I was like, this is not me at all. Now, I am a Christian, and there's a lot of stuff on my blog as accounts of what it is to be a Christian, but I'm not like evangelizing. So I just wrote them back and I said, hey, look, like, this is just part of who I am, and that naturally comes out. But my audience isn't necessarily only people who believe a certain thing or trying to proselytize or evangelize. This is just who I am. And so they wrote back and they said, hey, based upon that, you're accepted now. But I think it was one of those deals where it's just like, a lot of the stuff will naturally come out, but it doesn't have to come out in a debate format, right? Like, it doesn't have to come out in a contentious format. You will draw people to you. You will repel people from you based upon just who you are. And I think that goes the same for our customers too. Like, we'll be drawn to a certain type of customer, to a certain type of person as we interact with them more, as we learn more about them. And it's that relationship growing. You know what I mean?
Well, it's just that we all are drawn to different kinds of people, and different people resonate with us for different reasons. I have a really outgoing, bubbly personality. And when I first meet people, I get one of 2, reactions. Typically they're like, oh, great. She's bubbly. And then sometimes, the other one is people just don't really know what to think about me. They kind of stand back a little bit, and that's okay. They'll either get to know me and they'll know that I'm just kind of a positive, upbeat person and I like to have fun, or they won't, and that's okay. Like, I don't want to resonate with everybody. I prefer being Ahna, because when I'm Ahna, then I attract the people who are actually going to like me, for me. And I'm not going to feel uncomfortable around them or feel like I have to do stuff to entertain them. And that's, that's the same thing with like personal branding. When you're building your brand, it's why it's so crucial that, you really think it out and you're very purposeful about it, and making sure that it is something that really resonates with who you are, because you want to draw the people to you that are going to most naturally connect with your brand voice, with who you are. Those are the people that are going to feel like family, not just customers or clients. And you're going to be able to make such a bigger impact on their life, which is so much more gratifying, at least for me, than just that bottom line dollar sales,
Yeah. Okay. So pulling it back to I was making some notes here. You had said a little bit earlier, and I love the reason why I love DAC Talk, which, by the way, whoever is watching out there, if you want to interact with Ahna and I, we do these live so that if anybody does have questions or does want to comment, you can use Twitter, the hashtag DAC Talk, DACTALK, and we'll see it on Twitter. So just an FYI for anybody who is watching right now. But you had mentioned, and I was saying, one of the reasons I love about DAC Talk is because the conversation can go anywhere. These are just like coffee table type conversations that you and I would have if we were in the same room and there were no cameras and there were no internet. But one of the things that you said a little bit earlier is I asked the question, okay, where should somebody start if they're looking at launching their dream and they're thinking about, okay, how do I make sure that I respect this human element, that I'm engaging with humans, they're real people, that I'm trying to sell whatever it is I'm trying to sell, I'm trying to grow whatever it is I'm trying to grow with real people. And you had said, first and foremost, understand who you are. And I think that's a lot of what we just talked about. Understand really, truly who you are, what makes you tick, what's your flavor, right? Understand and be comfortable knowing that you're, peppermint mocha is not the same flavor as caramel macchiato. Like those are two completely different things. And if you tried to be in the middle of both, it would be gross to all. So pick out which flavor you are. And then the other thing you said is know where you need to be. Like, don't try to be all places. Pick a place online to show up where you can be your best version of yourself, where you can let it flow naturally, where you can let your personality come out, where you can be professional, consistent, all that sort of things. So let's say that somebody starts there. I know for me, I start off in a good place, but I eventually go from being in a really good place, very relational, doing everything the quote unquote right way. And I move from that place to I'm getting busy now. I don't have time to give creative energy to relating to people in real life. I don't have time to do certain things. When you get into that mode, which I think we all do, how do we get ourselves back to a good headspace of, shoot, I got to make sure that I'm focusing on the relationship here, because these are real people making real choices based upon the things that I'm saying or the things that I'm doing. How do I get back to that place of respecting the human element? Does that question make sense? Kind of that illustration there, that setup?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's, it all comes back to priorities and being organized, laying the groundwork for your business, for your strategies, where you're spending your time. Especially as an entrepreneur, we've got so many different roles to fulfill that it can become overwhelming, especially when we start getting busy or we start getting lots of clients or customers or whatever it is, then we start neglecting other areas. And it's just a human thing. But it's so, so crucial. I mean, I preach about this constantly, because the number one thing that's most important for our online businesses, for our offline businesses, anything that's happening in social media, consistency is so huge.
Yeah.
And people notice when we stop being consistent. People notice when we stop showing up.
Do you have something in your brain real quick that you can remember the last time somebody online noticed that you were gone? Do you have an example?
Well, I mean, every time I leave, I usually put up something that says I'm leaving. So, or if I'm absent, I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm coming back. I haven't had anyone point it out to me. I know that when I lived in Vietnam, it was, people would definitely get in touch with me and they were like, Ahna, you're just not the same online. And it's like, well, yeah, I'm sleeping when you all are awake and vice versa. I couldn't be the same person online that I was before. It was definitely an enormous struggle. But I think that when we become busy, our priorities need to adjust to that. And if our consistency level changes, that's okay. If it becomes less, that's okay. But we need to figure out what it is and stick to it.
Yes.
I tell my business owners, it's like, just start out, even if you just start out posting 3 times a day or 3 times a week on Facebook, start there. Figure out what you can do consistently, put it on your calendar and make it happen no matter what. And if you're able to, increase that frequency with time, then start working up to that, And if life becomes intense and you need to start focusing on other areas, be proactive about figuring out how you can maintain your consistency, even if it becomes smaller for a while. That's fine. Life is life. And I think that people understand, what's going on. What we don't understand is when someone that we've been seeing online, maybe every day they're doing a Periscope, and they're sharing their life and all this stuff, and all of a sudden you don't see them for a week, and you're like, oh, are they okay? Did something happen? And then you start questioning their credibility. You're like, well, wasn't I important to them?
Yeah.
What's going on? You just all these things start coming into your mind. And especially, with business owners, it's something we have to take seriously.
Absolutely.
So when you make it a priority and you put a strategy in place, it's kind of keeping yourself on task, and you have to do it. I mean, letting go, and I wrote a blog about this, letting go of my brand and staying on top of it. When I first launched my business, the reason I launched so well back in 2012 was because I had this online community that I built up for years, and this brand. People knew me, they knew my writing, they knew my design work, they knew me on social, and that was awesome. And within a year, you know, I became so busy that I had to back way off of that. And I was spending all of my time on my clients, and I wasn't nurturing my communities and nurturing, you know, what had built my business up. And then when I moved to across the, you know, to Vietnam, to the other side of the world, you know, and that change was very difficult for some of my clients. All of a sudden, you know, when I started realizing that I needed to jump back in the pool of getting more clients, it was like, wait a minute, I don't have an audience anymore. I don't have a community anymore, because I forgot about me in the midst of being so focused on my clients. So, I mean, life happens, but if you want to keep your business on tap, if you want to keep growing, you've got to stay on top of it, even when it gets crazy, you know, or even when things change, figure out what you can do. And if I had at least had a plan in place, or at least been aware enough to know, okay, I'm in a different place now. So this is what I need to start doing. Or, you know, now that I have more clients, this is what I need to do. I would have been in a better place to handle that major change.
Yeah, I resonate with all of it. There's so much right there that you just said. One of the things that you said earlier on in that little segment that you just hit there, you were talking about the idea of consistency, and you were saying if you've been consistent and you're doing a Periscope video a day, or you're showing up on Twitter and actually interacting every single day, and then all of a sudden you just disappear for a week, people notice that sort of thing. And what that kind of triggered in my brain is the idea that if you cultivate an audience, and then you started leaning into this, if you cultivate an audience, okay, no matter what the reason is, if it's trying to help the world or if it's just selfishly for yourself, if you've cultivated an audience, there is an element of responsibility that we carry, right? And I was convicted of this. I've been using Periscope a lot. Love Periscope, and I can't wait for you to start using it more too. But I love Periscope because it gives me an opportunity to lean into what makes me me. And I have a very big personality, a very dominating personality. Some people are really turned off by me, and that's fine. It's just who I am. I try to be graceful 100% of the time. But all that said, I was very convicted that I had grown my tribe. I had begun realizing influence. And I realized people were doing what I was saying. People were implementing things into their business, to their livelihood, based upon the advice or the contributions that I had made through Periscope, And that really hit me hard. I felt the weight of that. I was like, oh my gosh, people are actually going to do what I have to say. People are actually counting on me to show up tomorrow, to follow up with the advice that I dropped today. Like they need me, and I have a responsibility to that, because it's just like a real relationship. If somebody knows in real life that you're going to be someplace, you know, you're going to be that, you know, old man at the park playing chess every single day, and all of a sudden you stop showing up for a week, people start to wonder. People start to draw their own conclusions. People start to move on, and you lose that credibility and you lose that trust. And as people, we need to make maintaining credibility and maintaining trust a huge priority, especially when it comes to something like online social media and online business, where it's so vital to be in the same place at the same time, because there's not the same direct connection. So I don't know if that's kind of what you were trying to hit on, but as you were talking, I mean, I just really connected those two, because it's like, man, if people are going to do things based upon what we say, we best be showing up in the same places to follow up with them and make sure that, hey, you listen to what I had to say. It's not working. All right, let's try to figure out. And you can't do everything for everybody, but you get the vibe of what I'm pointing out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's two things about that. One, I think, is that people want to disconnect this whole online offline relationship thing, but it's the same thing. If you want to have a relationship in real life, if you want to build a relationship with someone, You can't just talk to them, you know, call them up a couple of times and then all of a sudden disappear and come back a couple of weeks later and expect it to be the same thing. It's not how it works. It's the same thing online, you know, and this is something I wrote a blog about as well.
Which, by the way, I love your
influencer.
blogs. I get all your emails. I'm on your list. I love your emails, and I love everything because what you're doing right here is exactly what you do in your emails. You're very strategic about your thoughts, and you don't just whimsically put stuff out there. You are doing what you're preaching right here, and I think it's fantastic. And yes, we all fall short, but I just wanted to affirm you in that because everything that you're saying, you actually do, and I love it. So keep going. But I had to affirm you in the middle of what you're saying there.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. No, I had put a blog together for the agency, I would say maybe 2 months ago now, but it's this whole thing, you know, as influencer marketing is kind of exploding on the scene right now. And it's like what you're talking about. You get in these positions where people start doing what you're saying. And my urgency with this and my encouragement with this is I don't care who you are or what you're doing or what corner of the world you're in. We are all influencing people. We are all affecting someone. And how are we going to influence them? Because that absolutely carries a responsibility. And I think it's something that we need to think about and then think about how we can be purposeful about. You know, you're influencing people to be thoughtful about how they're doing Periscope, about how, you know, they're handling their businesses online. That's awesome. I love your Periscope, by the way. But, you know, it's just this whole influencer marketing thing. And the deal is when we get online and people start listening to us, it's like you're walking out across this ledge and all of a sudden you realize you're really high up. And you're looking down and it's like, oh my gosh, you know, like you don't want to make a wrong move. You don't want to give bad advice. You don't want to say something that's wrong because people are actually listening to you now. And it kind of makes you stop and reevaluate, you know?
Yes.
But it's so important. I said this the other day, you know, on the podcast that you're on posting with purpose. And just everything that we are doing online, it's so crucial that we do it with purpose, that we think it out, whether it's with our schedule and our consistency, with how we're influencing people, with whatever it is our values are. I mean, you know, you're a Christian man and you're a family man. And so you're going to resonate, you know, with those people. You'll resonate with other people as well. But no matter what type of personalities we have, you know, even if we freaking like love to cuss and love to be angry and talk about politics, there's a lot of people out there that are going to resonate with us too. You know, like whatever it is, if at least we're familiar with that and we're centered in that, then we're going to be successful, you know, and hopefully we're going to do a good job of affecting the people that are in our space.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a reminder to anybody that's watching, if you want to interact, if you have any questions, any comments, we are monitoring Twitter. We've got the hashtag DAC Talk going. So if you have any questions as we're kind of getting ready to wrap up here in the next 10 minutes or so, send us a tweet with the hashtag DAC Talk in there, and we'll take a look at it. So somebody had a question that came in, and it was a little bit random, but I think it's a good one. It's random, but it is a good one. So how do you feel about Shark Tank as an entrepreneur?
Oh.
I find it entertaining.
I actually, this is a huge show amongst an entrepreneur community that I'm a part of, and I had never seen it myself until just a couple of weeks ago. And
you had never seen Shark Tank till just a couple of weeks ago?
I don't watch TV.
Oh, there you go.
I don't even own a television. Yeah,
Wait, so what do you do for life then?
Oh, come on, Dave. Please, no. I live on social media. That's what I do. You know, I think that whatever, there's a place for that, I guess. The one that I saw, like, you know, these guys came in and they had this business plan, and I actually was very impressed with it. and would have wanted to know a lot more. And I was, as someone who's watching this, I know that the folks who've done this, they've been in business for a lot longer than I have. They have more experience than I have. They have all these criteria that I don't have. But what I didn't see were enough questions about the actual business before the decision was really made. And I am definitely, a little bit more of a critical person, I guess, when it comes, my friends approach me about business ideas all the time because they think being an entrepreneur is glamorous. And I'm like, I'll tell you, it's not. But, I don't know. I think it's interesting. I also think it's entertainment. I think that there are smaller things like that in bigger cities. I think something like that would have more value to get involved in. I don't really know if I have a great answer for that.
I really like it. Here's the deal. Here's why I like DAC Talk. Here's why I like Twitter. Here's why I like Shark Tank. What I've found is that there are a lot of things that interest me, and there's not a whole lot of people in my life who understand who I am, truly what it is that I do. Like clients understand what it is I do because they see the results, right? They're like, hey, just keep doing more of what you're doing. But there's a lot of friends and family who just don't get it. And that's fine. And I don't try to I'm going to make you get it so we can talk about this. That's just not how I operate. I love sports too, right? I love politics too. What I find with Shark Tank is it's an opportunity for me to do exactly what DAC Talk is all about. Eavesdrop into a conversation with other entrepreneurs about what their dreams are, about what they've tried and what's working, what they've tried and isn't working. And it's just a way for me to engage with that lifestyle, with that conversation piece, without having to drag my friends and family into it and try to help them understand so I have somebody to talk to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So somebody asked that and I was like, it's a good question. So I'll throw it out there.
It's an interesting one. Yeah. I mean, like I said, in the entrepreneur community that I'm a part of, these guys worship that show. I mean, they would have Shark Tank parties in Vietnam just to watch the show. So I just didn't attend any.
Somebody, two people just sent in Janine. Hey, Janine, how you doing? She just sent in, she said, Shark Tank peeps are there for 2 hours. We just see the highlights. And Dustin says, the thing you don't see on Shark Tank is that a lot of these pitches can last hours. They're highly edited for TV time. So that's good to know. I mean, that's pretty much like everything else, right? Like what you see is not necessarily what you get. Yeah. And that's the same for when people are looking at this. I've never heard the phrase influencer marketing. I know what it is, but I never knew that it had a phrase. And I think that's a lot of the things that we need to keep in mind too when we're looking at influencer marketing is what you're seeing is the very end result of a lot of planning and a lot of strategy for the most part. So something that you mentioned earlier on, and I want to come back to that as well. So you talked about priorities and being organized. And I would love to hear it in order to maintain perspective on, hey, even though things get busy, this is how we maintain the human element with our customers on email, on social, on our websites, things like that. So the question for you is, what are some of the ways that you maintain those priorities and some of the ways that you stay organized? Because I think a lot of people would love to hear that as kind of inspiration for their own practices.
Yeah, I always love to hear how other people stay organized as well. Yeah. It's just good nerdy talk. So I'm a list freak and I'm a color coded freak. Every day before I go to bed, I write down a list of what needs to be done the next day, just so that I can kind of jump up the next morning and jump right in. The first thing that's on my list is always the simplest thing. And I found that just works for me because it just gets me going. I've read where some folks do the hardest thing and I just don't. I mean, like that, I can get intimidated in the morning. So I just start with the easiest thing and that just kind of gets the ball rolling immediately for me. And so then I'm like, okay, did that, feeling good about myself. So I jump in next. I think that, just being very consistent with my schedule, whether it's blogging, whether it's putting out emails, those sorts of things. Dave, I'm forgetting what you were asking me, everything.
That's okay. It happens. We're entrepreneurs. We got like 50 million things on our mind, even in the middle of being engaged in something. So I get it.
I get excited and then I'm like, ooh.
The question was, and still is, if you've got some things to add there, but just like, how do you maintain? And so while you're kind of thinking a little bit, one of the ways that I maintain priorities is I keep a whiteboard. Okay. I have a whiteboard with everything written down on it that I need to do, and I've got my whiteboard back there, right? I get everything out of my head because I find that I miss things, the little and most important things, when I don't get everything out of my head in the moment. So I've got this. If you were to look at my computer screen, you would see that I have reminders, the Apple app reminders pulled up on my computer screen. And whenever I think of something that's kind of like more of like a long-term thing, like not something that I can cross out immediately on my whiteboard, but it's more of like a long-term thing. Like, hey, I need to remember this for next week. I put everything right there. That way I know where it's at. And here's the real kicker, something that I'm learning right now. So it's a lot easier to talk about when we failed and how we recovered than actually I'm failing right now and I'm trying to recover. But here's one of the areas that I'm failing right now and trying to recover in. My team. So I have a team of like 5 people who work for me, and the same principles that we're talking about here with customers, they exist for your team too, especially if your team works remotely. Like, you've got to remember it. All of my team works remotely. How often do I work in the same room with any of my team members? Maybe once or twice a month. That's it. All right. So one of the things that I'm doing, because I've done a very bad job of encouraging my team, celebrating my team, things like that, is I've actually tasked one of my employees and I said, hey, I want you to be in charge of thinking about creative ways, how we can cultivate community in here. We use Slack, in our Slack channel room, and things that we can do to encourage one another, things that we can do to celebrate. I said, whatever you want me to do, I will do. Whatever you tell me to do, I will do. Right now, I don't have the mental space to think about this, but I'm thinking about it enough to say, I want you to think about it. I want your best that you have to offer. Do that. Let me know how I can succeed with you. And that's what we'll do for now. And so it's one of those things that we're trying to work through it right now. He's putting together a strategy, but so those are 3 things that I do. Like, 1, I get it written down on the whiteboard so I don't forget my priorities. 2, I have a list of all the things that I know that I need to do in order to maintain those relationships. And 3, when I find myself falling short, I bring other people into the conversation with me and say, look, here, I'm falling short here. I really need your best on this. And as long as they feel it's a win for them, it's a win for us. So those are kind of some of the ways that I keep my priorities straight as far as it comes to the relationship and the human factor, and the way that I stay organized with some of those things. So that's kind of what I was driving at. You can answer it however you want, but are there some ways that you kind of stay organized and stay on top of things when things get busy and it's like, I can forget about things easily?
Well, I mean, I think the brain dump is fantastic. You know, doing a brain dump is always, always, always good, especially when you're stressed, because Absolutely. It just allows you to get all the crap out and you feel better. And then outsourcing is huge. You know, like, as you get busier, there are things that you need to learn, you know, to have other people do for you so that you can stay focused on the areas where you need to stay most focused on.
Yeah.
But what I was going to tell you, I was like, trying to stay calm while you're talking. You've got to check out 5 love languages for the workplace.
Ooh, I'm writing
it down. So good. And it's something that it's a test I have the guys on my team, the folks on my team take whenever they first come on board. And it's incredible. I'm sure you've heard the 5 love languages, the book, right?
Oh yeah.
He made one for the workplace and it is awesome. It's so good. You know, because we do, I mean, like, I think it's really, really cool that you're saying, you know, like, how can we up the encouragement? But then taking into account the different types of, you know, people are going to receive encouragement in different ways. So in addition, like, for me, it helps me to know when I'm having a conversation with one of the guys on my team or something like that, kind of what's important to them. You know, if there's one who words of encouragement are huge for, then I need to make sure that I'm, you know, letting him know how awesome he is when I catch him in the moment. You know, just really doing something cool. Like, it helps me be more engaged. And it also kind of helps me get to know them differently, which is really cool too. So definitely get the book.
What's yours?
Quality time. course.
Quality time. So, okay. So that's a really good question. So quality time, but it's 5 love languages in the workplace. There's a whole bunch of dynamics with different employees and your relationship with them and things like that. So how do you manifest quality time in a busy work environment? Like how does that translate for you to where it's like, this has been meaningful?
Well, I think it's kind of funny because all of the guys except for
So you keep saying guys. And so I'm like, are they all guys that you work with?
They are all guys.
Okay. So that's another dynamic there too.
Yeah, I know. I'm aware.
That's great.
Yeah, no, all of the guys, my VA she's female. But all of the guys on my team, all of them except for one, their number one is quality time as well. So that's nice. We're all, very much the same. How I manifest that is I make sure to have a one-on-one call with them as often as I can. We have weekly team meetings. We do things like that. We have strategy meetings, but that one-on-one call where we're just talking and I'm asking them also about their life outside of the agency because I do care, but just kind of catching up with them and catching up with how they're feeling with everything, getting that one-on-one, because, they're not always going to voice their full opinion in a meeting, where all the other guys are on it. So just that one-on-one connection makes a huge difference. I feel it when I get off the phone. I'm like, yeah, it was great to talk to them. And I know that they feel more centered and more invested, in my agency. So in our agency, I should say.
That's fantastic. Well, Ahna, we're reaching the end here, and I know there's a lot more that we could talk about. There's a lot more that we could get into, but as we are reaching the end, I want to give you an opportunity. Like, I've loved connecting with you, and obviously we've connected over Twitter, and then our relationship has kind of, just kind of expanded from there. But if somebody wants to reach out to you, interact with you, connect with you, maybe ask some follow-up questions, where would you like to send them?
I think Twitter is the best route. Just follow me on Twitter. Come say hi to me on Twitter. Just be a human being. And that's awesome. I get a lot of people who, I don't know, because I'm constantly looking for new people to follow. So I get a lot of interactions that are just spammy, and, oh, Ahna, try this, or look at my blog, or read my new article. And I'm like, I don't even know you, But I'm super friendly, and I definitely will help anyone I can. No problem, giving some advice or whatever to help folks out. So just come say hi on Twitter. Totally not an intimidating person at all.
No, you're not. You're actually incredibly sweet. And one of the things that I love about the emails that I get from you and the tweets that you put out is it reflects who you are 100% of the time. And whenever I get a new email from you, like I always make sure to look at it. I might not read one email as much as I'll read the other one. And I know that that's the way life goes, but I always scan through them to see what you've been up to and see what you've been working on. And they all like just scream Ahna Hendricks. And I love it because you're exactly right. You said earlier on, like just something along the lines of like, I just try to be good at being Ahna. And that's what I heard Snoop Dogg say. And anytime your goals in life align with Snoop Dogg, you have to stop and wonder, is this the right thing? And in this case, it is. I was on a scope, and I've said this a few times. I was on a scope and Snoop. Okay, so anytime you have the opportunity to listen to someone, I don't care who they are, somebody that has reached the top of their game, they have learned something along the way that you can benefit from.
Yeah, totally.
Somebody asked him, okay, Snoop, you're older now. You're not in the prime of your career as far as the rap goes. How do you decide where to spend your time, what social media networks to hop on, and where you should be? And he goes, it's easy for me, man. I'm just really good at being me. And everybody laughed because like, ha, 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 funny, like he's being silly. And he stops and he goes, no, he's like, in the Snoop Dogg way, is like, for reals, man. Like once you learn how to be you, you're going to be all right. If you know who it is you are, like you're going to be okay. And it's just so true. Like I think Snoop Dogg knows how to be Snoop Dogg because everything he does is Snoop Doggy. You know, like it's just
Yeah.
his style.
Snoop Doggy.
It makes sense. So,
Yeah, no, I agree.
it totally does. Okay, so thank you so much for taking time. This has been fantastic.
No, thank you. I have had a blast.
I'm glad. I'm glad because a topic like this, there's so much that could be said on it.
Yeah, definitely.
Again, what I like about DAC Talk is it just becomes so conversational, and it's one of those deals where we wind up talking about things we never really would have talked about if we had stuck to a really close script. So thank you, and I hope you guys will check out Ahna on Twitter at Ahna Hendricks, and I'll tweet out some stuff on my handle too, so you guys can find her. We'll see you, Ahna.
Bye.